Welcome back to the Sober Sofa. My name is Shanti Patty Owen. I am your host for this channel, where we discuss all topics related to addiction and sobriety. I was able to be with him on his final journey. He was sober. I stayed sober, and our sober community supported us. I am a sex addict, love addict, an alcoholic, a compulsive gambler, and a debtor. For those who are new to this channel, let you know that I was a former fashion model in the 80s, and since 2016, I have been working as a sober coach and a sober companion, and I'm excited to share this information with a far greater audience. So thank you all for being here. I have been asking lately for people to send in their stories of experience, strength, and hope regarding addiction and sobriety. And this morning I woke up, I was like, gosh, I really would like to share somebody else's story. Maybe I could think back and remember other stories people have told me. I was like, nah, that's inauthentic. I was like, I got to think of something else. And then I opened my emails and bam, Anne sent me her story. I'm so excited to share her story. I read over it very quickly and I printed it up. I think I get the gist of her story, but it's basically what they call hot off the press. So here is Anne's story. She titled it, "It Seemed Like a Good Idea at the Time." At 47, I was sitting alone in the house and wondering where my life had gone. Evidence had been piling up over the last 30 years that my love affair with alcohol had edged out all of my relationships. The second husband was out with his kids. It was a Saturday morning, so I had already had a quick drink to forestall the hangover. I had to ask again, as so many times before, could alcohol be the problem? Up to now, I could always answer no. It's not the alcohol, it's the fill in the blanks, the husband, the job, house, weather, money, parents. Somehow, on that Saturday morning, I was able to allow alcohol onto the list of possibilities. I grew up in Ohio, where 18-year-olds are able to drink 3.2 beer legally. I couldn't wait for my 18th birthday. I was on my way to college. Even then, I knew that partying was a siren song that I would not be able to ignore. Rather than go to a big state university and deal with sororities and fraternities and football, I chose a small church-related college in a dry town in Indiana. I didn't even know there was a such thing as a dry town. Upon reflection, it was no surprise that I had a six-pack of Budweiser in my freshman dorm room 2 weeks after I arrived on campus, even though getting caught would mean immediate dismissal. There were wild rides across the state lines in someone's old jalopy to the lamplighter, where we would have pitchers of beer and pizza. We drove home. No seatbelts back then, no designated driver. There was no such thing, no problem. I moved off campus as soon as I could, and I went to New York City for my quote-unquote junior year abroad. It was back in the day in New York City when 18-year-olds could drink legally. None of the 3.2 beer stuff. Oh no. By this time, I had taken a hostage and got married the Thanksgiving after I graduated. My father, who didn't drink, in my memory, had some of the champagne punch, and I found out much later that he was then off and running again. He had stopped when my brother and I were very little, and we were not present at the conversation where my mother must have laid down the law. He was able to stop on his own willpower, but that was not a trait that was passed on to me. On the Saturday that begins this story, I had heard about 12-step programs. I had even cycled through AA-adjacent meetings, Codependents Anonymous, Overeaters Anonymous, and it seemed like I couldn't swing a dead cat without hitting someone who was talking about AA. There was even a drug and alcohol awareness Sunday at church. I was furious. That's not what I was going to church for. But I was praying that Saturday for God to please let me drink through the holidays. That Sunday, I had a company Christmas party to go to. I was a stockbroker at Merrill Lynch. The drinks would be top shelf and no limit. Please, God, just let me drink through the holidays. I also had a New Year's Day party every year. Hair of the dog provided for me and folks around town who also needed quote-unquote treatment. Please, God, Please let me drink through the holidays. On January 2nd, I'm your girl. Then something happened. That moment when I just knew that if it was crazy to drink on January 2nd, it was crazy to drink today. And I heard it. I understood. Was it a message from beyond the veil? The voice of my higher power? God as I understood him? I can't say. But I chose to believe that it was a direct reply to my abject plea. I went to church the next day and told my priest that I thought I had a problem with alcohol. He shared that a parishioner had offered to break his anonymity and go speak to Tim, who was still outside, standing next to his truck. My heart was in my throat, but I walked across the lawn and I talked to Tim, who offered to take me to a meeting the next day. I met him in front of a church in the next town on Monday at 6:30. He handed me a big book, took me inside, and introduced me to a bunch of women. It took me a while to learn about men with men and women with women. Oh yeah, that was strange for me at the beginning because they want to cut down on sexual tension. Clearly, they didn't know about the LGBTQ community. Okay, back to Anne's letter. My life changed at that moment. I was given the strength to give up alcohol, one day at a time. And at this point, I had been sober just about as long as I was drinking. Do I miss it? Ask me if I miss the blown up and burned down relationships, the many addresses, the many career changes, the headaches, the missed appointments, the bankruptcy, the lies to self and others. Has my life gotten better? Yes, immeasurably. Second husband and I were able to have a sober divorce. He got sober a year after I did. And after his first year, with no major changes, we were able to part ways as friends. In itself, a major miracle. I was freed up to go to New York City, where I had always wanted to live, see age 16. I met and married my soulmate, husband number 3, finally got it right, and shared 25 years together. We traveled, going to AA meetings together wherever we were, and welcomed friends from abroad to meetings in New York City, where we had a home group, sponsors, and sponsees. I was able to be with him on his final journey. He was sober. I stayed sober, and our sober community supported us. He had a similar story and got sober in New York City, changing careers to become a psychotherapist. As a career as a stockbroker and then 10 years working on the corporate side of a fashion company, I joined the quote-unquote family business and got my master's in social work. It was a thrill to go to graduate school sober, and I delighted in the work and the joy of learning in a way I couldn't have had as a kid, heading to the Lamplighter Bar and Grill. And thank you so very much. Wow, what a life, what a story. Thank you so very much. You guys had started tearing because I recently lost a friend of 42 years. He just recently passed away. And it always gets me when people talk about loss. I don't do very well with loss. And wow, thank you very much. Perfect timing. So I'm going to put out that call to all of you again and again and again. Please send your stories. And we learn most when we share our stories. That's why this is called the Sober Sofa, where it's safe to talk. I want you all know that it's safe for you to be here and to talk. We don't judge each other here. It's a place where we can share our stories, because when we keep our stories inside, the shame festers, and that's where oftentimes our addiction issues will flourish. So thank you again for being here today. Thank you for subscribing, for hitting the bell notification and thumbs up to my videos. And I have another request. Could you all please forward my videos to people that you feel could really use this information? Because that's why I created this channel. Now, if you don't have addiction issues yourself, I bet you know at least 1 or 2 people in your life that might not admittedly have addiction issues, but here's a place where they can actually explore that notion. Maybe they don't have addiction issues, but they're so afraid to look at it that they bury it. So if you would also share my videos, would greatly appreciate it. And I will see you again next week back at the Sober Sofa.